Welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name is Blue Giggers, and today we're going to be talking about Serenity again. Now, I just to let you guys know, I'm not running out of ideas. I actually have a few ideas, a few videos I'm going to shoot, so I won't be doing reactions. But I saw this video, and I had to debunk it. I had to. So I already watched the video. And what I did was I went into it and I cut it. It was 20 minutes. It's not 10 minutes. Now, I did not do anything like as he does. Like, he will take stuff out of the manga, so he will make a certain narrative. I did not do that. This is just cut down, trim the fat. I'm going to say my argument. He's going to say his argument in the video, and no one will be misrepresented. No one's doing any funny business here except for Serenity. This is a completely honest cut of the video, and it's Serenity. Or for anyone who watches Serenity thinks that they have a problem with the cut, leave a comment. I'll respond. But without further ado, let's just hop right in to the video here. Just a sec.
Let me bring up Invaders for a second. Basically, Invaders keeps emphasizing that Eren and Zeke are... Let me bring up Invaders for a second. Basically, Invaders keeps emphasizing that Eren and Zeke are the ones responsible for the declaration of war, not Willie or Marley. Let me repeat the logic one more time. Eren, through Zeke, manipulates Willie and Marley into doing the declaration of war, so Eren is the one responsible, not Willie or Marley. Marley are the real victims here. If you don't understand my problem, let me give the Berserk analogy.
Okay, now, as I've said a million times, ending defenders, or Jaegerberg, I should say realizers rather than believers. Jaegerberg realizers do not say that Marley's a victim. This is why I like Attack on Titan, because Attack on Titan is a complex story. So on the one hand, you have an enemy of peace like Eren. So usually in that situation, the person that he's rebelling against would be the bad guy, or the victim. In this case, they're not the victim, right? They all have their own baggage here. So just because we're saying Eren caused the declaration of war, and not maybe a cause, but he provoked it, or he was always intended on doing rumbling, something that Marley is wholly a victim, right? That's the whole point of having complex characters.
Who's the one responsible for sacrificing the Banner of the Hawk? Griffith or the God Hand? Now, the most obvious person responsible is Griffith, right? And I did say that Eren is influenced by Griffith. No. I ask for us to be consistent. I ask for us to keep using ending defender logic on this.
Please.
Eren manipulated Willie to declare war. Willie is now responsible. Eren is responsible. Griffith was manipulated.
No one says that Eren manipulated Willie. That, with this is one of the instances in which the villain, the bad guy, the antagonist is actually in the right. Great example of this. I have two examples of this. Great example of this would be Season 2. Now, a lot of my fellow ending defenders are Alliance fans, and so in Season 2, when Reiner says the worst person to possibly have his power is you, Eren, we're all assuming oh, that's just Reiner being, whatever, being salty, being bad, it's him being the villain. Then when we look back, we're like, oh, you know what? The antagonist was actually right here. Another great example is when, again, another villain, Annie, is released from prison and Hitch is riding her on the horse, and she's asking her, why would you do all these things? And Annie says, well, to prevent that. And so, if you're an Alliance fan, you're looking back, you're like, well, yes, probably would have been a good thing if Annie captured Eren. Who knows? But does that make Annie good? Does it make Annie a good guy? Does it make Reiner a good guy? No. But that's my point. These are complex stories, and that is how this happens. So, no, we don't believe Willie Tiber was manipulated by Eren. Both men are responsible for their own actions. That's what happens. And in this case, Willie was being, again, another more complexity. He was being selfless, but also evil at the same time. Because he was being selfless, and he was genuinely making a sacrifice. He genuinely sacrificed him and his wife. That'd be his sister. I forget. Laura. Him and Laura's life for the rest of the world. That's genuinely what he did. There was no ulterior motives. Everything he said in that speech was 100% true. And that is, again, another recontextualization. Where we're reading that speech, I'm like, oh, come on, he was lying. He wasn't lying. Every single thing he said was true. And he did it for a purely selfless cause. But on the other hand, he's evil because he used a bunch of children as bait, you see. And so that's how that works. That's how complex narratives are written. It's not one or the other.
By the God Hand into sacrificing the band of the Hawk. Do you see where I'm going with this? The God Hand was responsible for sacrificing the band of the Hawk. Griffith is not responsible for sacrificing the band of the Hawk, simply because he was the one manipulated. But let's not just stop there, brother. Listen to what Invader says.
An argument frequently used to justify Aaron's attack on the festival is that it was only a response to Willie's declaration of war. However, as I've spent so long explaining, it was the complete opposite. The brothers' plan is what caused Willie to declare war in the first place, and his strategy to make himself into a martyr.
Again, completely correct. He said in the speech, Aaron has the Valentine. He's gonna kill us all. And what happened? Aaron got the Valentine, and he did what? He killed them all. Or tried to kill them all. I'm not gonna get an analog translation, but you know what I mean. So, and Bears is right here. Had Aaron had not done the rumbling, this wouldn't have been a problem. And you may say, oh, well, Beluga is the same chance. Well, that's not even relevant at this point in the conversation. Because if you're Marley, are you gonna be like, oh, you know what? Marley should just let the rumbling happen. They should have accepted it, and they should just let themselves all get killed. Right? That would be ridiculous for you to say, especially if you're a Jaegerist, which is supposed to be a nationalist. Like, let's be real, you're a nationalist, and you believe that your family and your country should be protected. Okay, fair, but the logic has to carry through consistently. So whether or not the rumbling is the last choice for Aaron, Invaders is 100% right. The festival only happened because Aaron was going to kill them all.
Relied on Parody attacking at that very moment. But what if Aaron had changed his mind at the last minute, hadn't attacked, and the festival had ended with that incident? In that scenario, it's possible that Willie's entire plan would have fallen apart.
Well, it's not possible because we know it. We know that. We know that because the person says it. So that's the author saying it, right? Just like when I think the analogy with Aaron, because when Aaron said, "I have to go in the front of the line, or else they won't follow me," that means if he didn't go in the front, they wouldn't have followed him. No one says, oh, it's plot convenience that Aaron got hit. It's plot convenience who's in the front. No, it's a plot convenience. He has to be in the front for that plan to work. And so if Willie says, I have to die for this plan to work, and we're going to get to that clip later, we're going to get to the exact panels that have to die for this to work. If Willie wouldn't have died, guess what? The plan would not have worked. And there is many, many options you can take from there. Again, we're going to get more into the video later, but that's all I'll say for now.
Do you understand what he meant? Basically this. Aaron was going against the peace talks. Aaron was rebelling against peace. Why was he doing that?
Well, not just that. Again. We know he's according for whatever reason you think the rumbling was inedible. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, except if you're an AOE bro. But whatever side of the aisle you're on, you believe the rumbling was inedible. And so that right there is enough. If you're an Alliance fan, you're like, okay, well, rumbling's evil and it shouldn't have happened. And if you're a Jaegerist, you're a nationalist, and so you have to translate the principles accordingly. So whatever side of the aisle you're on, you're simply this Willie 100% had the festival because of Aaron's own actions.
Guys, it's an Invaders video. It obviously has something to do with Armin's book. Pay close attention to the following points. Number 1. Aaron was preventing Armin from establishing peaceful negotiations with the outside world because he wanted the rumbling from the start. Point number 2. Had Aaron not attacked at the declaration of war, the outside world would not...
And point 1, I'm not going to say anything on. It's been a while since I went for parody. I'm just going to stay out of that. As far as number 2 goes, 100%, yes.
But have joined Marley in attacking parody. Armin would have likely been successful in negotiating peaceful solutions with the outside world.
Well, again, this is what I'm saying. This is why I think that I'm pretty sure Serenity is a dishonest actor. Because, that game might be an echo chamber. I remember one time, who was it? I think it was Manga Horse. No, it was by Boy Reviews. He tweeted, "Everyone loves Mikasa." People were like, "This is bait. This is definitely bait. This is bait." And I'm like, "No, it's not bait. If you're in certain echo chambers, you really believe things about the other side." And so he really believed that people like Mikasa was like universally loved. And so maybe Serenity's not a dishonest actor. Maybe it's just in an echo chamber. Either way, it's completely wrong. Ending Defenders This is not any defender's belief. There is many, 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 many options. And I'm going to bring up another line of dialogue. A country without warships is bankrupt. It's another line of dialogue. They could have used a whole manner of things. There was the rumbling's not a zero-sum game. It's not either, okay, no rumbling or talking no jutsu. Again, this is geopolitics. This is one of the most complex things that we as humans have devised. There was, again, many options between destroying this port, attacking this city, attacking that city, using diplomacy, using deterrence, hope, friendships, alliances. You have to remember, they just got done fighting the war. And they almost lost. Right? They almost lost. Who's to say a Hizuru, Eldian, Mideast alliance couldn't form? Who knows? That's not for you to say. And another thing, in such a dense show like Attack on Titan, every line of dialogue matters. Why do you think that right before Willie came up, do you know if you guys remember this or not, the fat gentleman, he was trying to make a joke, and he was drunk. He knows about people being drunk, they reveal the truth. He was being drunk, he said, yesterday's enemies are today's enemies too. That's indicative of something, right? Do you think that it's at all possible that the Mideast Alliance still wouldn't be angry at Marley after they just fought a war with them? And we have other lines of dialogue and people hate Marley? There was many options. It's not either full rumbling or talking about jutsu.
World. Now let's try and see if they're headcanons. I'll start with number 2.
His speech relied on him becoming a victim of the very threat he described. Without this happening, his words would have been empty.
Invaders looked you in the eyes and said, his words would have been empty.
No, Invaders didn't say that. Willie Tiber said it, and the author was implying it.
How could this be, when already the people were crying tears of joy at the thought of murdering everyone on parody?
With no imminent threat.
Yeah, and if they were proven false, if Eren came up and said no, that's not actually gonna happen, or Armin came up and they did something, but when you kill a bunch of children and women in the apartment buildings, yeah, they probably will think that about you.
It's unlikely that the world would have fiercely rallied against parody in the same way that we watched happen.
Oh wow, that's a nice fallback plan, brother. Even if I debunked you right here and now, you could easily argue, oh well, they wouldn't have invaded parody as fiercely.
But it could get even worse for Willie. If parody had made their peaceful intentions clear to the world after Willie's speech, his entire strategy could have backfired. If it appeared to the world that Willie's speech was nothing more than cheap manipulation to boost Marley's global standing, their response may have been drastically different.
Of course.
Really? It was because Eren attacked at the declaration of war that the outside world chose to side with Marley and attack parody. Okay.
Yes.
Eren plans the declaration.
Yes, because you and I both agree that Eren's a credible threat to destroy the world. Willie Tiber says, hey, Eren's going to destroy the world, and Eren goes and heals a bunch of people in their apartment buildings. So what? Of course. But if they did anything else that did not involve doing that, if the speech would have concluded that incident, and Willie Tiber says this, nothing would happen.
Of war with Yelena, and by proxy, Zeke. Eren goes to Marley with his friends. Eren meets Ramsey. Mikasa's question. Eren goes to the meeting and he leaves. Skip forward a little bit, then it's chapter 100, the declaration of war. Okay, outside world would have joined Marley only if Eren attacked at the declaration of war. I know I am repeating myself a lot of times, but this repetition is necessary. So, if Eren wasn't present at the declaration of war, the outside world would have been singing Kumbaya with Armin.
Again, see, and since I watched the video beforehand, I know where this is going. No, that's what any defenders say, and he's using this to do what was called begging the question or something. I think it's more of a straw man. He's doing this so he can say, okay, so any defenders think this thing. Think that if he wasn't there, nothing would have happened. Boom, there we go. And then he's going to go off and say some other nonsense that you will see shortly. No, we're not saying that. I'll say that this is the last time I'm going to say this because he's going to bring this up over and over again. There is many options, and any defenders do not believe that if he simply wasn't there, it would have gone swell. There was many options. Some, I don't know if you know or not, some include the military. Alliance stands are not opposed to the military. They're opposed to global genocide. That's it. They're not opposed to the military. So, I just want to leave that out there. So whatever he says after this is a complete straw man.
Armin, ready? Chapter
Here we
138.
go.
When Aaron runs away prior to the Alien Rights Group
Here we go.
meeting, three things could have happened. Either Zeke cancelled the festival for the declaration of war, or the declaration of war happened, but Aaron wasn't present, or the declaration of war has yet to occur. But if you notice,
Again, I said I was going to say this again, but again, strawman.
there's a
That's not anything that's saying should happen. Strawman. But you'll see what it
constant
says.
in all three. He was not there to attack at the declaration of war. This is the perfect testing ground for invaders as headcanon. Let's check the results. Chapter 138, Aaron says, "It's been 2 months since the Marlane War ended. The war to invade parody will begin soon." What a surprising turn of events.
Okay. So, and for full disclosure, for those who don't know about Serenity, he is 100% a doomer. So, now all of a sudden, now out of nowhere, he's now a hope chat. I didn't know this. We should have a coming out party. But he's using 138 as evidence for the declaration of war. Now, if you are a hope chat, I would have to go onto this long tangent about 138 and why you're wrong, yada yada yada. But for us people who do not believe such things, we all know this is irrelevant. Whatever happens in 138 is irrelevant. 138 never happened. 138 is not an alternate timeline. You can just say, "Oh, this is proof. This actually happened." No, there's one timeline, and this proves nothing. This is simply an aberration Aaron created for Mikasa. That's it. I don't need to explain it any further. And I think and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think it's extremely dishonest of Serenity to start changing his beliefs, to start morphing and changing his beliefs. Now all of a sudden he believes in multiple timelines. Because the only reason his argument works, as he said, let's fact check this. The only reason his argument works is if his cabin timeline was the first timeline, and Serenity and I don't believe that cabin timeline ever happened. We only think there's one timeline. So why is he using that as proof? If you're a listener, he's using that as proof because he's using whatever sleazy means he can to advance his political agenda. That's all.
He and his family as examples of people who were not racist towards aliens. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna give you another.
So basically, I cut the video because I didn't want to, go and repeat myself over and over again. He's basically saying outside world is totally against parody, and if you want to use Ramsey, yada yada yada. So we're going to this. I think this is a good point, so I put this in here.
Example. Oh, aliens. This guy pulled a faster 180 than the Eremikas did on Nisiyama because the outside world would have been singing Kumbaya with Armin. Ready? Chapter 138. When Aaron ended, the war to invade parody will begin soon. What a surprising turn of events. He used Ramsey and his family as examples of people who were not racist towards aliens. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna give you another example. Oh, aliens. This guy pulled a faster 180 than the Eremikas did on Nisiyama because of the extra pages. In the same way that the cleaner was kind to them because he did not know they were aliens, Ramsey and his family were kind to them because he did not know they were aliens. 7 Sergeant Gross says, all of humanity wishes for the same thing, to wipe out every last Eldian. Chapter says, the hostility that Eldians face here is nothing compared to the way it is in other countries. You want me to pretend that Aaron wasn't disappointed at humanity's cruelty, but just at the idea of humanity existing outside the walls. But let me guess, you are going to use Willie's dialogue.
Okay, so a couple things. A, thought this was probably the best part of the video. He actually brought evidence in context for once for his argument. And of course, he cherry picked. What do you know? This is an Indian hater video. They can only cherry pick. It's the only way to be consistent. But a couple of things. A, as far as the Ramsey thing goes, I think it's actually perfectly valid. If you want to use Ramsey as an example, then yeah, you have to deal with the fact, well, they didn't know they were Eldians. So that's a good point. But I would like to call into a couple of things. There's many people who hated Marley. And, Undu says this, or someone says that. I believe it was Undu, though. And, of course, we've got the Mideast Alliance going to war with them. We have, again, 2 glaring examples of people who are friendly towards parody. We have the whole nation of Huzuru, which is I was told supposed to be Japan. I thought it was China. Whatever. Still, millions of people who like Eldia, which would, by the way, go to my other point, which we'll talk about later. And then we have the anti-Marleyan volunteers who knew that the Eldians were Eldians and still were friendly and still killed people. for talking about Sasha. All right. So no, the entire world does not hate Elvia. That's completely ridiculous. And as far as the Sergeant Gross thing goes, I find that to be very interesting because now if a minor side character says something, now all of a sudden it's canonized. Well, excellent. So if Armin says the 50-year plan will work, then I guess it will work. Since not only did a minor side character say it, one of the main characters said it. I guess one really says that if he got attacked if he didn't get attacked at one of the works, I guess it's right because he said it. Of course, dear listener, that's not what Serenity is going to do. He has to be inconsistent. All these ending haters have to be inconsistent. And so we see, again, the manipulation. But as far as the Sergeant Gosling goes, again, I already debunked that because he's really anti-Marlene volunteers and so on and so on. But it's clear what's going on here. He's obviously biased. He obviously hates Eldians. So he's going to say, we all hate Eldians. If you were to go into Nazi Germany, you were to say, well, do all Germans hate the Jews? Yeah. And he went to the SS. You think the SS would say, oh, yeah, of course they do. Is that a credible source? Of course not. Why would you take that at face value? Of course you wouldn't. You would only take that at face value if you had a political agenda to advance. In which case you would use him as your spokesperson. But no one believes that Major Gross has neither the knowledge nor the discernment to decipher whether or not the Eldons are hated by all. Let's get to my next part. And the third thing. Again, for the last time, Jagerberg believers do not believe that Eren was not upset about the persecution of the Eldians. No one believes that. No one. There's, again, zero. There's zero people on this planet who think that Eren was not upset with the persecution. None of us believe that. What we believe is that Eren's a complex character and has multiple motivations, some of them conflicting. Okay? Like if you're a Hope Chad, for an example, you think he's going to kill Mikasa, right, to save the island, right? So he wants to save his. We all know, he likes his friends, but he likes the island. To make a conflicting motivation. Does it mean he's inconsistent? Does it mean we think that he only cares about the island, or they think he only cares about the island? He's a complex character with complex motivations, and I'm pretty sure 99% of people saying that we think that already knew that. But for the 1% of you who didn't know that, let me fill you in.
In the carriage in chapter 100, Invader says,
If it appeared to the world that Willie's speech was nothing more than cheap manipulation to boost Marley's global standing, their response may have been drastically different.
I am not surprised.
Perhaps Parody could have even made a bid to ally with the nations that opposed Marley.
Ah, yes, the aliens making a bid with the outside world, who hate.
Again, they already did. Again, when the Invaders is not realizing that they already did. The aliens already did ally with other nations. That already happened.
Aliens even more
twice.
than Marley.
Happened twice.
That bid you speak.
I would say a nation. They had a nation with the anti-Marlene volunteers, and then a state with Hizuru.
Kickoff would have likely ended in failure, as per usual with Armin. Let's read it out. The world will not pay attention to me unless I stand there before them. We must have militaries, journalists, and diplomats from around the world. The most important thing of all is for the Eldians in this interment zone to become tragic victims, myself included. Victims of an unforeseen attack. The world would not take my side if I was the only one to.
There you go. That's the end of the conversation. I don't want to hear about this ever again. We have a line of dialogue right there from, again, a much more discerning individual than Major Gross. Saying this wouldn't have happened. And just common sense. We have this. We have the person saying it. We have common sense. Bada bing, bada boom. There should be no debate about this. There should be no conversation. Watch what his counter argument is. Watch.
To escape. Oh dear. I clearly got debunked.
Yes, he did.
The world would not take Willie's side if he was the only one to escape. Victims of an unforeseen attack? How about the victim of an attack that never happened? Because Eren was not present to attack at the declaration of war. Because he ran away? Of course, you might be able to debunk my argument by saying this entirely different world is not an alternate timeline where the plan for the festival still took place, but instead it's a false memory where Eren was feeding false memories to Mikasa. Do you know why this happens? Why they still invade, even in this alternate timeline? Because
actually, so what he does is this doomer. I promise you think I'm making this up. Go look at his tweets. Go look at his YouTube community post. He says, "Okay, so I clearly got the bugs. What shall I do? What should my counter argument be? Aha! Multiple timelines. Ah! And then he says, well, if you could be a false memory, another straw man. No, we don't think it's a false memory. What we think is that it was an aberration created by Aaron. There you go. 138 happened in 138, 131 happened in 139 happened in 131. As we believe, it's very simple. It's very cut and dry. This was something that Aaron created in the moment to help make it so. So alternate timelines on memory, it's nothing. And if you want to talk to me about, what she says, long dream of the birds, this, that, leave a comment. I'll talk to you. I've made videos about AOE, so plenty of content to go off of, but this is just ridiculous. Now, let's continue.
Because diplomacy was never a possibility, and
Ridiculous.
And this was built up by the story through Armin's talk no jutsu
No.
to failures. Chapter 11, Armin talk no jutsu.
Yes, Armin talk no jutsu worked. Yes, he convinced Pixis to let the boulder plan happen. So yes, it worked.
Ends with success.
Here we go, cherry
They were
picking.
about to be blown up sky high.
Yeah, it didn't work on him, but it worked on Pixis.
Aaron's freedom scene would have been nothing compared to this. Chapter 31, Armin's talk no jutsu with Annie. Ends with success.
It worked, yes.
Look at him.
Yes, literally, look, she got captured. The boulder plan wants to capture her, and they get captured. Guys, again, I know we're all in second season 4, but you have to remember a lot of this manipulation trickery happens because people don't remember what happened in earlier seasons. The Civic Corps, the reason why they were even there, the reason why this plan happens is because the Civic Corps was arraigned in the Capitol because they were being completely worthless. How did the Civic Corps stay in business? They used the successful capture of Annie to say, hey, we're doing something in the world until their lease got extended. So this was so successful, it literally changed the government structure of Arity. Literally. But he's banking on you forgetting that because it was a long time ago.
They successfully captured Annie. Chapter 78, Armin's talk no jutsu with Bertolt. Ends with success. Bertolt exploded himself because of Armin. Chapter 128, Armin's talk no jutsu with Samuel and Daz. Ends with Armin getting shot in the mouth.
I don't think that those last two were supposed to be like genuine attempts.
Mouth. Surely the most obvious symbolism would be talking does not work. And before you say Armin's plans work well in the past, that was when Armin actually used his brain and not just his mouth. They captured Bertolt because Armin acted as bait. Armin did not just use talk no jutsu, did he? But now, when all Armin does is try
And
talking...
again, this entire thing is a distraction to Strawman because you don't think it's only talk no jutsu.
Talking it out,
I already said it.
like
I don't
someone
wanna
who
repeat
only
myself.
knows about Thorfinn's pacifism vow through memes, the result would be very clear. Armin's peace talks would have never worked. Aaron already knew that diplomacy wouldn't work from the future memories he received
That is
from
true.
touching Historia's
That
hand
is
in
true.
Chapter 90. He sees the Eldian Rice Group meeting in his memories, sees diplomacy wouldn't work. He visits
No, he sees
the
the close
Eldian
wouldn't work because he's the evil monster who wants to destroy the world, but that's a whole other conversation.
Rice Group meeting, literally confirms to him that...
No, and again, with this whole, he walks. It's like us Jaegers, we're disposed to thinking Aaron's right, so we interpret all these things weirdly. He walked out of the meeting. What sort of imagine going to a meeting and then walking out before you can even say your piece. I do a lot of debates on this channel. When my opponent does his opening statement and he says something I disagree with, I don't turn off my computer and go back upstairs. That'd be foolish. I knew coming into the meeting that he disagreed with me. Why would I leave before I get the chance to present the argument? All he did was he came, he heard, they disagree with me, they're racist, and then he went out. That is not diplomacy. If this were to happen in any other context, he would be laughed at. If anyone pulled this ever, he'd be laughed at. Let's say in a random scenario, if something happened between China and the United States and they went to negotiate, or between Russia and Ukraine, and they went to negotiate, and one of the leaders sat down and they said, okay, I want this, this, and this. And then the other guy just picked up his stuff and briefcase and just left. Because, he disagreed with me. That's essentially what happened. He went to the rights group, knowing they were racist, knowing that they were disagreeing with them, didn't give a chance for them to hear the opening state, their side of the story, and he just left. Again, you can go on and on. A lawyer, the prosecutor stands up and says, this person did this, this, and this. The lawyer just packs up his briefcase and leaves. No context to this works unless if you're a Jaegers who believes that the Romans are the only option. This was foolish. This was ridiculous. This was nowhere near trying to be diplomatic and trying every solution at all. Let's continue.
Diplomacy wouldn't work. Unless you mean to tell me that Aaron didn't just manipulate Willie, but he also manipulated this speaker to be all hostile towards Parody. Aaron was going against Armin's diplomacy because waiting it out for Armin's unreliable talk no jutsu would mean relying on unreliable comrades. Chapter 25, Levi's Choice. Either believe in yourself or your reliable comrades. Chapter 28, believing in his comrades caused them all to die. And Aaron knows his talking.
That's funny. People keep bringing this up as if it's like some sort of, as if the answer is clear. The reason why Levi doesn't give a clear answer is because there's no clear answer. Again, I would like to bring you back to season 1. Remember Annie was playing with him, was toying around with him, and when she decided to get him, he was out like that? You guys remember that? He would have been captured either way. See, that's the problem. He would have been captured either way, and it could have been worse if he would have been captured earlier. Who's to say? A whole host of things that would have happened if he would have been captured earlier. Who's to say it wouldn't have been worse, right? To say, oh, he trusted his comrades and it was bad. Well, was it really bad? I mean, again, Aaron didn't send chance to get Annie either way, and so trusting his comrades would have at least resulted in him getting eaten. Not killed, but like eaten. That's guaranteed. And what would happen to Aaron after he got eaten in the other scenario? Who's to say? It could have been worse.
King is unreliable because Aaron was literally there.
And again, you're like bring up the line in season 1 where Aaron puts his full trust in Armin back in the cage, and when Aaron says in 131, in 139 that he made a mistake by Armin. Armin turns to God when Aaron says he's gonna put his faith in Armin. He wants you to forget about that. So he wants to like, speaking of strawman, this strawman make believe Aaron that believes that doesn't put any faith in Armin at all, and is completely opposed to Armin's diplomacy when it's untrue.
Witness him fail his talk no jutsus. Chapter 11. Aaron was there to witness. Chapter 31. Aaron was there to witness. Chapter 78. Aaron was there to witness. 3rd time's the charm. 3 is the magic number, because by default, Aaron, by retaliating at the declaration of war, did not ruin any possible chance of diplomacy, of establishing peace between the outside world and Parody.
Yes, after you attack a nation, destroy her ports, and then kill people in apartment buildings in a residential area, yes, that's when peace talks get cut off, yes.
Because there was never any chance to talk it out in the first.
And he quotes Sergeant Gross. How are you? If you get to bring up Sergeant Gross, I get to bring up Armin and Yelena, right? Surely they hold more weight than him.
First place, but we can't have that. We have to make sure Aaron takes complete responsibility.
Again, Strawman, we don't think Aaron has complete responsibility. There's many factors at play here.
For the declaration of war.
One of the most common criticisms directed at the Scouts is that they supposedly did nothing to prevent Marley's attack. One of the biggest reasons this belief gained so much prominence was because of Aaron and Hanji's discussion in Chapter 107. The ambiguous translation of Aaron's dialogue seems to imply that he was desperately searching for an alternative to the rumbling, yet could not find one due to the Scouts' incompetence. However, what Aaron was actually saying was that Hanji had no choice but to rely on him and Zeke, as the military would be powerless without them. What was seen by many as a cry for help was in reality the complete opposite, and by this point, Aaron had already decided that he would destroy the world.
Gentlemen, you just witnessed invaders make up his...
Okay, so this is where I agree with both parties here. This is why I say invaders is imperfect, because on the one hand, the Scouts were definitely incompetent for sure. And as Invaders going to bring up, there's many lines of dialogue that say otherwise. I mean, even just looking at the situation, no matter how you interpret the situation, Hanji acted inappropriately no matter how you interpret the situation. However, masterclass gaslighting here. Let me show you. Let's go and let's see the actual panels here, shall we? So anyway, here we are here.
Destroy the world.
Gentlemen, you just witnessed invaders make up its most obvious headcanon. So, Chapter 107, you would obviously interpret the scene of Aaron's question to Hanji that Aaron is asking for an alternative to the rumbling. Chapter 132, Hanji says, and you might interpret her dialogue as a response to Chapter 107, the original and common interpretation of this.
Okay, so remember, this is supposed to be Aaron being diplomatic and begging for other solutions. Notice how he opens the conversation. I ate the Warhammer Titan. What's the relevance of that? Seems random. It controls Titan hardening to create weapons or anything it needs underground. It was an annoying enemy. Again, I don't see the relevance there. In other words, you can't imprison me no matter how tough or deep this underground cell is. I can leave here whenever I want. This is a weird way to start peace talks, but let's continue. And of course, you can't kill me. I'm the founder. I think Aaron's just a bit distracted here. What's more, threats aside. This was him threatening her. Oh, okay. So Aaron said himself he was threatening her. Then, so your entire conversation just goes out the window because he's clearly threatening her, and he said himself he was threatening her. You can't kill Zeke either. In other words, Hanji, what can you do? That's a rhetorical question. He's mocking her. That's not an actual question. He's actually asking, well, what can you do, Hanji? Well, yeah, anyone who speaks English fluently knows he's mocking her. What can you do? That's a rhetorical question. He's saying, what can you do? Because I have all the cards. You can't kill Zeke. I have the Warhammer Titan. You can't do a thing to me, so what can you do? Tell me, Hanji, is there another way? Tell me what it is. And then he starts to flex his Titan powers. So, clearly, if you go back and you read the scene, clearly it is supposed to be him threatening her. I mean, he literally says he was threatening her. Threats aside. Don't let invaders gaslight you. This is not how a desperate person comports himself. He does not threaten people and say, "I have the Warhammer Titan, you can't kill Zeke, so what can you do?" if he was really trying to be diplomatic, he'd be like, "Well, Hanji, we went to the Eldian rights meeting, and I tried this and I tried that, nothing worked. What can we do?" Not, "You can't kill me, you can't kill Zeke. What can you do?" See the difference? I know this was a while ago. I know we have short memories, but you can make it through this.
Pick up its most obvious headcanon. So, chapter 107, you would obviously interpret the scene of Aaron's question to Hanji.
If you were Jaegerist, you would. If you're a Jaegerist, you
would. Simply because the scouts' incompetence leading to the rumbling is referenced back in chapter 127, chapter 132, chapter 133.
Look at this. This guy, honestly, it's almost impressive how good he is at this. The original. Look at that verbal engineering. It's so subtle. The original. Guys, that was not the original. Different people interpreted this scene differently. Again, back to my analogy about the people saying Mikasa was well loved. If you are in certain echo chambers, you will think, "Oh, this is the original interpretation." No, it wasn't. This is not the original interpretation. There's many people who knew he was threatening her. And if you were to talk to a diverse set of people like I do, you would run into people who interpret things differently. You'd be like, "Whoa, that's interesting. I did not think of that scene that way before." But you don't. You stow yourself away in an echo chamber, and so you only know your interpretation of the scene. So when invaders comes along and gives you a different interpretation, you're like, "Oh, this is a rogue interpretation." No, our interpretation was a rogue interpretation. This wasn't the original interpretation. What makes you think it's the original interpretation? Let's continue. It's not the easiest. Again, it's not the easiest. People say, "Oh, EDs do mental gymnastics." It is absolutely mental gymnastics if you want to explain to me how that was not him threatening her, even though he said it was threatening her, but was actually a desperate cry for help and diplomacy.
Than invaders' interpretation, simply because the scouts' incompetence leading to the rumbling is referenced back in chapter 127, chapter 132, chapter 133. Chapters which I literally just showed the dialogue of. Because these chapters are special. Because if you notice, it's not the audience that described the scouts as incompetent. It's the scouts themselves.
Funny. Now apply that same logic to 131. But he's right. The scouts, especially Hanji, he says scouts, he says Mikasa. The server core, they didn't do as much as they could, and Hanji obviously acted inappropriately, so I would agree with that.
Themselves that admitted their own incompetence in finding an alternative solution. And I did not even include Armin's little crystal fetish in chapter 110. So yeah, it really makes you wonder, if Invaders' interpretation of the story is the correct narrative, why does he need to recontextualize many scenes so drastically?
And this, I think, is a very good question. It brings up an important point. Why does he need to recontextualize scenes? Well, here's why. Because I think you can say this with pretty good agreement. None of us AOT fans are infinitely intelligent. None of us have perfect reading comprehension skills. And all of us are not unbiased. So when we're deficient in things, intelligence, reading comprehension, impartiality, when you're deficient in those things, you are prone to be wrong about something here or there. So someone who is sufficient in what you are deficient in can come along and help you. And that is why we have a community, so we can balance out each other's insufficiencies, you see. And so when people like me or you who are sympathetic towards Jaeger's cause read something, we read it through Jaeger's lens. And so we say, oh, this is how it's interpreted. And so we're falling into a trap of our own confirmation bias. And again, I know you don't think it's a doomer, but this guy's an absolute doomer, so he knows how confirmation bias works for the Hope Chats. So by that, we're prone to be wrong about something. So the reason why it gets recontextualized is because we were wrong and made a mistake. See, and what you're supposed to do when you make a mistake is you're not supposed to blame the author. You're supposed to say it was recontextualized. You're supposed to say, I was wrong, I misinterpreted this because of my own mistake. That's what's supposed to happen, right? But instead it's going to say, well, actually, no, I was right the entire time. You were wrong. This is, again, recontextualized because you want me to forget everything so you can brainwash me. No, he's not trying to brainwash you. What we're trying to do is educate you. Because you're insufficient in something, you're deficient in something. And I mean, we're talking about Serenity here. If I'm Serenity personally, I mean, obviously, you know, there's many things that are preventing him from understanding the story fully. And so he needs a brother to help him out. That is why stuff gets recontextualized. Unless you want to tell me that you have perfect intelligence, perfect reading comprehension, and you're completely impartial, unless you want to tell me that, then and only then can you say that you shouldn't have the story contextualized. But if you say, well, I might not have perfect reading comprehension, maybe I might be deficient here or there, I'm not perfectly intelligent, I don't have perfect impartiality, well then you're saying that you are very likely to misinterpret something. There you go. So that's the video. Thanks for watching, thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you in my next video. Oh, and make sure to join the subreddit, link will be in the description.